The Classical Style, by Charles Roson. The musical language of the late 18th century. According to E.T.A. Hoffmann, Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven developed a new art. Their music was felt to be original and had integrity. The concept of a style creates a mode of understanding. It helps us appreciate the context of musical taste and appreciation. It's important to distinguish between the style of a small group and the more anonymous style of an era. This helps us avoid confusion of levels. The High Baroque influence. The High Baroque style provided a systematic musical language that was used by classical Viennese composers. Mozart and Beethoven both had a specific relation to Haydn and Johann Christian Bach. Bach and Handel both synthesized disparate national styles of their time, creating a complementary relation between their personal styles. This allowed them to be considered as a unity. A style is treated as a work of art and judged by coherence, power, and richness of allusion. The style of a group represents a synthesis, a reconciliation of the conflicting forces of the period into one harmony. The style of a group is almost as much an expression itself as a system of expression. And current changes of fashion and revivals of interest in one past style after another, each successive style is almost a solid object. Unlike the history of English, evaluation becomes a necessary preliminary in the history of music. Haydn and Mozart's work and conception of expression set the norm. The importance of style. What is most exceptional, not what is most usual, has often the greatest claim on our interest. The style of a group is a construction that enables us to interpret the change in the musical language. It's a contradiction essential to a work of art that it resists paraphrase and translation, and yet that it can only exist within a language. The idea of the style of a group is a compromise that avoids this impossible fragmentation. The importance of Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven. Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven revolutionized the classical style. Their work represented a synthesis of the artistic possibilities of the age. They purified the irrelevant residue of past traditions. Haydn and Mozart's work cannot be understood against the background of their contemporaries. Their music represents the principles inherent in their work. Clementi's fusion of Italian and French tradition and development of virtuoso passage work was significant. Beethoven rejected the pearly manner of playing. Their common understanding of the musical language led to analogous solutions in their work. Their unity of style is a fiction, but one they helped to create. Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven's work represented a considerable change in the musical language. Their impact is still felt today. The language of tonality. The classical style was made possible by tonality, a living and gradually changing language based on natural harmonics. Tonality is a hierarchical arrangement of triads based on natural harmonics or overtones of a note. It's a symmetrical but unbalanced structure. This imbalance is essential to the tension and resolution that forms the basis of tonal music. It's why the diatonic major scale uses only one triad in the subdominant direction but 5 triads on the sharp or dominant side. The circle of fifths is a circular system that identifies the triads that are significantly close. It's the theoretical basis for music. Equal temperament is a system that enforces an equal distance between the 12 notes arranged in a scale progression. It's essential to much of the chromatic music written in the 16th century. The language of tonality. Tonality is a rich and complex language based on the physical properties of a tone. It deforms these properties to create a regular language with more expressive capacities. The circle of fifths was a contemporary method of mapping out the chromatic scale. It reveals the asymmetrical relation of dominant to subdominant and emphasizes the center of a tonal work as a triad. The minor mode is essentially unstable and often used as a chromatic device to add color to the major. It's an expressive but more unstable form of the same key. The basis of all Western musical form is the cadence, which implies that the forms are closed and set within a frame. Final cadences were not attacked until the 19th century. The late 18th century saw a significant change in tonality. Equal temperament established a new polarity between tonic and dominant, creating a stronger emphasis on the dominant cadence. The dominant seventh chord became the most unstable dissonance, demanding immediate resolution into the tonic chord. This preeminence of the dominant seventh was reinforced as the medieval distaste for using diminished fifths disappeared from music. The evolution of modulation. Modulation, the transformation of the dominant or another triad temporarily into a second tonic, affirmed the polarity of tonic and dominant. This was realized with the full establishment of equal temperament, and the consequences of this were only realized in the latter half of the century. The chromatic modulations of the 16th century did not distinguish clearly between the flat and the sharp directions. In the early 18th century, modulation was more often a drifting movement than the genuine temporary establishment of a new tonic. The complexities of tonal hierarchy.
The tonal hierarchy is more complex than just the circle of fifths. Factors like the tonality on 2 can create tension and dissonance in relation to the tonic I. The keys of 3 and 6 are sharp keys that increase tension. The keys of 3 and 6 are sharp keys that increase tension. Other tonalities must be defined by the context of the music. Even music for string quartets by Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven was written with the system of equal temperament in mind. Pitch is subtly altered for expressive reasons that have little to do with just intonation. In fact, the theory that string players should play in just intonation is a late 19th century one. Joachim, a friend of Brahms, popularized this theory, but Bernard Shaw claimed that he played out of tune.
The character of tonalities.
The character of different tonalities is more relevant to the psychology of the composer than to actual musical language. Donald Francis Tovey ascribed the idea that keys have definite characteristics to their relation to C major. The traditional use of certain instruments in certain keys also influenced the connotations of the tonalities. The dominant character of C sharp and the subdominant character of D flat are bound to have affected any composer's sensibility.
Changes in music style.
The second half of the 18th century represents an important stage in the centuries-long process of the destruction of the linear aspect of music. The classical style attacked the horizontal independence of the voices and the vertical independence of the harmony by isolating the phrase and articulating the structure. The history of music may be seen as a gradual breakdown of all the various isolating forces of the art. Linear form is essentially the isolation of the elements of music.